what are some of the key supplements that you like to use? We'll start with inflammation, keeping inflammation under control. What supplements do you like for that?
So I'm a big fan of turmeric, and also if
Yeah.
you have, if you like kind of curries and turmeric and adding some of those spices to your food
Hmm.
on a regular basis, in addition to having it as an anti-inflammatory. I tend to use diet often as well and get people on anti-inflammatory diet, which wouldn't mean
Yeah.
no dairy, no sugar, no alcohol, no grains. And
Hmm.
it's really then going to be plant-based with regards to also then other forms of protein. And in addition, I'm going to be looking at the combination of fish oil with evening primrose oil. I'm going to be using things to also help stabilize the blood sugar. I might use some of the adaptogenic herbs for adrenals like ashwagandha, cordyceps, rhodiola. I might use red clover, or I might use wild yams if they have hormonal dysregulation as well. And it's fantastic to know that we can also use homeopathy in combination with these things to help with that inflammatory cascade. I use a homeopathic drop in my practice that people are begging me to not take them off because it decreases inflammation so very much. So when you do it a combination and you're really fine tuning it for that person, there's no one size fits all, depending upon where that inflammatory cascade's coming from. What's motivating that cascade? Is it cortisol? Is it the body fat they have? Is it cardiovascular issues? Where is it coming from? Then I'll intervene, and I use supplements all the time that can be incredibly helpful. But I also want to understand what's the cause of the cause. Where is that problem coming from?
Yeah, going upstream, getting rid of the root cause, and then using these supplements to supplement a healthy anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Let's talk about what some of these things are doing. Evening primrose oil. Okay, that's it's an omega-6 fat and high in gamma-linoleic acid, but it's not commonly talked about when it comes to the main supplements people are talking about. What is that actually doing in the body?
So it's actually blunting that pathway that increases arachidonic acid. And arachidonic acid is the fire in the system. So when I have
Mhm.
somebody that has dysmenorrhea, or we call that cramps, menstrual cramps, the two things I use all the time are evening primrose oil, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, along with a fish oil, a really good quality fish oil. I either use krill if the women are older, or I'll use, about 2 to 3,000 EPA DHA. That combination is extremely important for that inflammatory cascade. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to blunt it. And all the studies now, we know that you can use that combination that's very similar to some of the medications that we use that decrease inflammation. So I can get the same
Mm.
amount of response if I'm using the combination of that in conjunction with a combination of turmeric or something similar to that. And I'm always looking at what do I need to look at with regards to that particular person's issues, and then I'll intervene with exactly the same success that I can have with some of the medications. And they don't have side effects, whereas the medications do.
So the eating primrose oil, the fish oil, they're working on the prostaglandin system and helping to get better balance between arachidonic acid and EPA and DHA and all these key fatty acids that are components in inflammation and help trigger inflammatory pathways. Let's talk about the adaptogens, right? You mentioned ashwagandha. Obviously, there's many of them: ginseng, rhodiola. Um,
Cordyceps.
what are the, yeah, cordyceps, another great one, holy basil. What are these doing? What are they working on?
What I love about adaptogens is, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. It's kind of fun. I was in I went to Belize, and we went, of course, to the rainforest. And we had a guide, and the guide was kind of looking at the monkeys and the responses and was saying, oh, that monkey must have diarrhea. It's going to this particular tree. Oh, that monkey must have, some issues around cardiovascular things. It's going to that tree. We don't do that in medicine. We use drugs in the same way, but many of the drugs have come from many of the plants that we are now using. So an adaptogenic herb is exactly that. It helps that monkey that has diarrhea adapt to that and take care of the problem. So if we have an issue, for example, of high cortisol, I might put people on phosphatidylserine that blunts that cortisol and it brings it down. I might use licorice for somebody who has low cortisol. So I'm going to use that to adapt the body to get that cortisol level up. Cordyceps and rhodiola and, many of those adaptogenic herbs, they're amazing because what they do is if the numbers are high, they bring them down. If if they're low, they help stabilize those numbers. And it's a much easier response in the body than just using a very strong drug that has multiple side effects and that is hitting a nail with a sledgehammer. I want to just use a small hammer for, a small nail. And
Yeah.
that's what the adaptogenic herbs do, is they really support the biochemistry of the body instead of hitting it hard.